I'm muted. Sorry, I got when I muted myself. Hello. I should mute you. You're just talking too much today. Okay, you know I got power to push you off stage, right? Except that I know you have to be here to take us through the summary, so I will forgive you. But don't mengada-ngada, okay? I am coming in to KL in a couple of weeks again. I know where to find you, okay? Hi, Malar.
That's exactly why you need to be kind. Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening, Malaysia.
Yeah, good evening, Singapore. How are you?
I'm okay. But you said that you're very hungry because you just finished a day full of facilitation, huh?
Yeah. I just get into spaces where I'm hungry all the time. Yeah, it's just a kind of.
I know. I am like that. I'm like that after a day of facilitation. Yeah.
So it's like
this hunger suddenly hits you.
Correct. So I don't know whether the hunger is activated by rest and relax mode. So my body is going into like.
Okay, before you totally rest and relax, I think we better get with the show and and do what we're supposed to do. And you know how we can very easily slide into I don't know what, especially when we don't have a guest today. So for everyone who's with us right now, today is the last week of August. And as usual, in the last week of the month, we summarize, connect the dots, pick out the nuggets that share the nuggets that we picked out over the previous weeks and the guests who were with us. Yeah. So this month it was about hacking talent acquisition, and we had 3 guests. We had Srijit Nambiar, and then he was followed by Sharma Kumari, and we ended off with Sandra Kosase. And like you said, Malar, all starting with S, and Charles with S as well. So we're all very clear and in clarity. Okay.
I'm so glad I'm an M.
Anyway,
it's 6 o'clock. I just think the 6 p.m. thing is not too good for us because our brains seem to be working better 8 o'clock in the morning. But to do justice to people who've joined us, I see 5 people have joined us on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, please say hello and encourage us so that we are more motivated. At least just say hello, and interact with us. So good evening, and we're going to do the summary for this week. And you're absolutely right. We had 3 amazing speakers this month. I learned a lot. I learned really a lot about talent acquisition, right? And it's so critical. Talent acquisition is so critical because why is it critical? I think if we get this part right, we will get a lot of other things right, or we will have less firefighting to do. Right? When we look at organizations and the kind of challenges, I don't know whether I feel like in my years of working, whether there's been a more challenging time to do business, a more challenging time to keep talent, right? I just find it just really challenging, you don't know that there's so many issues floating around, right? From the Great Resignation to empowering people to making sure business is growing, to making sure people are happy, and to making sure people are well. There's just so many too many things to manage for leaders as well as for employees. And talent acquisition if we can get the formula that works for our organization and our business right, I think what will happen is, I think a lot of leaders and the people within the organization would be in peace. I think that's what I've actually learned. Yeah. So why don't you quickly, maybe you quickly summarize, the three speakers, because I think they had three distinctive yet topics that was connected. It really flowed very well, better than we planned it. So
yeah. Just to carry on what or to take the lead from what you said, right? I think what the pandemic has done is, I mean, amongst all the other things that the pandemic has done, is that it accelerated a lot of issues in terms of retention and acquisition and development that were already there. And it was, if you read the journals, you read the articles, you read the thought leaders, what the thought leaders are talking about, they were talking about all of these issues well before the pandemic, and the idea was that it's going to come, right? And everybody expected it to going to come a few years down the line. It will like gradually kind of pick up steam. What the pandemic did, it was just accelerate the whole thing, I think. That's basically it. Okay. So let's summarize the 3 weeks. So we started off with Srijit, right? And I before I talk about each guest, I put a post up today in LinkedIn, and I said buy, build, or build and buy. And my analogy or metaphor for that was buying a house, and how my husband and I were thinking about buying a house, right? So you can either buy the house and not do anything and walk in like, it's ready to be inhabited, or you can build it from scratch, or you do what we did, which was buy and then build it up to be what it is that you wanted, because it then matched what we like. So yeah, I think that really, for me, that kind of resonated. If I want to use an analogy for the three guests, so Srijit was all about buying, all right, creating the pipeline, an active pipeline as well as a passive pipeline, to be able to buy the talent, that specific talent that he was looking for, and that specific talent who can culture add as opposed to culture fit. Right. At the same time, he was also looking for me. To me, what I remember was that, or what he left with me was that creating that funnel of passive talent that he may have to tap on, or he may need to excite in order for this passive talent to join at the point where maybe the active talents are not interested or they're looking elsewhere. So that was Srijit. Then we had Sharma, and Sharma's strategy, or what she was talking about, or what she works in, is very much in the build, right? Why go buy when you have the resources within your organization? How can we then build, look at what we have and build them, hoist them up, build the skills so that they can climb up, and have people supporting that, either people or the system or the processes that support that build up, right? And finally, we had Sandra last week. And Sandra was interesting. We were talking about her, right? And we talked about how she's looking at both buy and build, right? I'm buying the talent because we are going into a new industry. I'm buying the talent. They don't necessarily have to be a culture fit, but values is very important. Now, how do I get that? How do I bridge that? I build that after I've bought them, right? Because there are specific skills that I need. We don't have them in our current form. Our new form needs something else. I need to go buy that new skills, right? And then I will fit it to I'll shape it to fit the culture and the values that we are working on. So that's my takeaway from the 3 weeks that we had. Malar, yours?
Well, very similar to yours, except that for me, what was fascinating, the additional stuff that I took from Srijit was that he really got me thinking, as an organization that does L&D, right? We do training and development, right? One of those things that he got me to think about is the impact, right? Because when when he spoke about active job seekers and passive job seekers, so passive job seekers are the one that we maybe in organization we might be taking for granted because they're quietly performing, they're quietly doing their job. They're not out there, looking for a job, but they are performers, and they're passive, really happy. So these are the talent you without much work you're retaining and who are contributing right now. But the other thing about that was that when he spoke about networking, he also actually said these are the people I continue to network and continue to be in touch because I'm looking for the moment when they're not happy. I disengage. Right? Because organizations generally do engagement surveys, right? And so he's waiting, and it makes so much of sense that you're waiting for the moment they're going to be disengaged, because when they're disengaged, if I'm in touch and I'm talking to you and I have a position, then you're going to consider it. And organizations may not even realize that, hey, you know what's wrong with you? You've always been happy, and you. So from an organizational point of view, so from a recruitment point of view or talent acquisition point of view, his strategy is fantastic. But what it got me thinking that our clients are concerned is that, okay, now how do I now make sure that if I have passive people within the organization, I need active action to know when they are not happy or when they are beginning to be disengaged.
Or not do things that don't get them there. Right? To be able to do things so that they don't get into that stage of disengagement, right? And as you put it, right, as I'm hearing you put it about in terms how you contextualize the passive talent, right? It reminds me of business development, right? So you have got clients who really you're not working like what we do, right? We have got the active clients, and we've got these clients that we are engaging with, but they're not ready to so-called buy from us yet. And so what do? We connect with them, we keep in touch with them, we engage them, and then when they're ready, at that point that they are ready for whatever the reason is, they know where to reach us, right? And that's precisely what Srijit is doing. That's his strategy. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So on one hand, what we are doing well, and what's an opportunity for some people like Srijit, right? Is a threat. Yeah, for the people who actually have this talent, right? And of course, Sharma, I thought I loved it because she was helping us to look at the importance of culture fit. She brought in a different dimension to say that, because even Srijit spoke about how culture fit, and in fact, culture ad would be very important. Right? So on one hand, right? On the other hand, what Sharma said is that, hey, she was talking about the passive the passive people, right? They could be your potential talent that's hiding within the organization because they're not loud, they're not shouting, screaming and stuff like that. And how do you then, right, make sure you look out within your organization for high potentials, right? How do you build the talent within? How do you make sure you don't miss out on the talent that you already have? Because talent acquisition is expensive. Now, first, it's expensive. Number two, because you're talking about she differentiated for us recruitment and talent acquisition. A lot of times, people who do recruitment say they're doing talent acquisition, right? But actually, they're just doing recruitment. So she helped us to see that. But more importantly, she helped us to look at where our talent might be hiding within the organization and how do you surface, right? Because they might be in a job that doesn't, show off the talent, which is why you do internal networking, you do internal relationship building so that you know where they are, where the job is concerned, where the talent is concerned, right?
Right.
And then
Yep.
she also spoke about the various things that you can do, whether it's job rotation. But my most favorite was, oh my goodness, what was that? Where they actually put the people through various activities to find out.
Yep.
What was that?
Where their propensity is,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, right.
right.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was important because
Assessment centers, right? You're talking about assessment centers. Yep.
and what was brilliant about that is that when you have assessment centers, you are now having your internal talent getting an equal opportunity as to the people you might be considering for acquisition. All right. And with the internal talent, right? So one is they're already a culture fit. They already
Yep.
have the competencies, right? So many
Right.
things are set right already. Okay, on one hand. Yeah,
Mm.
and you don't have to worry about those things when it comes to building internal talent. So I thought that was fantastic. And I think I also like the example where she said that, when you are looking at internal high potential, right, and if you already know them, now what happens is that sorry, someone is saying bye to me now. I got distracted.
Okay, Sana, don't do this when you're in a show, huh?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, it wasn't good enough. We had a visitor. Right. So when you're looking at assessment centers, right, and when you're looking at high potential and we're putting through that, even if they have a gap with internal talent, you can develop them, right?
Yeah.
Right, because if you see a gap, and they are applying and they want to grow with it, and they have a gap. Whereas when you're acquiring talent, you might think you can develop them, you really don't know, right? Yeah. So I thought that was brilliant. And it's also very encouraging for other people to watch people grow within the organization. So I really love the idea of assessment centers that Sharma.
Yeah. Not just encouraging, it's motivating, right? It validates that there is a future, there is something long term that we can look out for in that organization, right? So I was going to do that to say hello to those of you who have joined us and those of you who have put in comments. Hi, Panir. Yes, you said hi to Malar, but I'm saying hi to you anyway, Malar. And we also have Shanmuganathan, who has joined us, and unfortunately, Shanmuganathan, we are not recruiters, nor are we in headhunters. What we are is practitioners of leadership in flow. And today we're talking about how organizations hack talent acquisition. And maybe by listening to us, you get some ideas. What are some new strategies if you want to look for a job in Malaysia and you want to reach out to different organizations for you to think about what are different ways you can do that. Okay, so thank you for joining us. So Malar, shall we put up Sandra, sorry.
Sorry, before that, Shanmuganathan, one person to follow is Azhar.
Azhar.
Azhar Ahmad. I will tag you because he's giving a lot of tips because he's interviewing and he's doing a lot of work around that space to give tips to people.
He's a hiring manager, yeah.
He's a hiring manager, but he's helping a lot of people to be ready for the job. So I will tag Shanmuganathan, I'll tag you with some people I know, and you can connect with them, and hopefully they'll be the right match for you, right? That's the least we can do. But thank you very much for coming into the show and telling us what you need. Yeah, going to Sandra now.
Go ahead.
Okay, Sandra was interesting, right? Because for me, we looked at buy and then we looked at build, and what Sandra did is she went totally with buy and build, but she helped us to look at skills for future skills. It means what do we need for tomorrow, right? So not only whether you know what is relevant for today's business, but for, actually looking at what the business requires or what the industry requires for tomorrow. Being a visionary, right? And digital orientation is top. So what I thought was very interesting with what she said was that bringing in people who have digital orientation and who may not have experience in your industry, so that you're bringing their skills in and giving them experience within your field and see where they can actually take us. And I thought that was like interesting, very interesting, because
Okay.
a lot of us are thinking, how do we manage today? And we are looking for fit, we are looking for what works, right? And what Sandra was telling us is that, okay, this might work today, but if you want to grow the business in future, you need people who have those skills, who may not come from your industry, because a lot of digital orientation may not come from the industries we need it, because we are bringing in a different level of skill into our industry.
Correct.
And how she was, for me, brilliant in saying that, how people without experience in the industry actually matter. In fact, today I was running a session, right, for an organization, right, and they were trying to do this to educate or to create awareness among their people about how to basically manage your own career development. And they were so amazing because they brought in headhunters, literally speaking, right, to speak to their employees and say, let me tell you what's the industry standard. Let me say what is actually happening. And one of them actually really shared a similar example where he said, and they were asking, where's our future and all of that. And he said, people are not looking for relevant experience. People are looking for experience and expertise so that you can marry whatever you have and bring it to my industry, because we want to do something new. We want to do something different. We want to do something innovative. We can't do the same thing.
They're talking about culture ed. That
Yeah.
Srijit was talking about, right? It's culture ed, right? It's not what fits in, but what is that little different, what's that something new that you can add on. It can be creative, it can be innovative, it can be just a totally different skill that we don't have in our team right now, or the group that we're looking at, right? We don't have that in our organization.
So I thought
That's
that was
interesting.
that's been playing in my head, right? As to think, okay, we're just so stuck looking for familiar skills, familiar experience, but it does not. I mean, it was diversity in a different way.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Sandra's one that was like, I mean, all three of them gave me different things to really think about and bring together. Because when we go and meet our clients, we realize these are things that they are struggling with.
Yeah. Exactly.
These are things that they are struggling with, and we need to help them with these struggles proactively when they're talking to us in learning and development and consulting. Right? Okay.
Correct. Okay, very good. Shall we now move on to what you've prepared for everyone? Okay. See, because we are having that argument, I pushed you down. Now I push you up. Okay. All right. Yes, us again. And yeah, and for those of you would like to put a face to the name, this is Srijit, Sharma, and Sandra, right? And if you look at either Malar's or my LinkedIn profile, or even our YouTubes, you will be able to access any of these shows whenever it is. And you can do this via video or on podcasts through Spotify. Okay, so let's look. So this is the concept of culture ed, and I must say that it was Sri who introduced me to culture ed, right? And the concept of culture ed. I think it was after our prep call chat with him that I went and kind of, what on earth was that new thing, right? At least for me. And I've come to realize that it is something new. It is something that is a little bit like the theme of the flavor of the month, but let's see how long this goes on, right? The concept of culture ed. Because when you are there is an element of when you bring something different into an organization, when you bring diversity into an organization, there will be conflict, there will be changes, there will be friction, and how does the organization, deal with that as well? Yet at the same time, if it's harnessed well, I think it's something that would be very, very useful and very, very beneficial to the organization. Malar, you want to add anything here, or shall we move on?
No, I think it's great. Let's do. I am sure people who are interested, they will check in what Srijit has
check
said.
in with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Over to you, Malar.
Okay, so I think these are some things that Srijit had told us. If you're thinking of hiring, talent, right? I think the clarity is extremely important for the hiring manager, right? Hiring manager and the person who's acquiring talent, right? Whether we are clear about it. And I actually like that the fact that it has to be flexible and unique. And I think this is a real challenge because we fit people into job description, and we don't fit job description into people, right? Because if you talk about talent, even from the point of view of where Gallup talks about talent, right? When you're talking about high potential or people who are talented, what you don't want to do is you want to ride on their talent, but not try and fix their weaknesses. Yeah, because fixing their weaknesses, right? The benefit of fixing their weaknesses is far much lesser, right, than the benefit you get by using their strength, right?
I think the benefits is there, but I think the ROI is low. The ROI is low because it takes a long time before those benefits kick in, right?
I don't agree with that, not from a Gallup point of view, because I think what we do is that we say, okay, if I fix your weakness, right?
Okay.
Unless it's critical, unless it's safety, right? Then they shouldn't even be hired. So we're talking about, my strength. When I bring in my strength, right, my productivity is 2 to 10 times more. When
correct.
When you let me use my time to fix my weakness, I'm only going to get to a point of competent.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just you're trying to make me competent in this way. But when we're fixing our weakness and we're trying to be competent this way, what the energy we could have used here comes down, right? So I think from that, and sometimes we do it not because the job requires it. That's because we're trying to fit the person into a job description. Because there would be another person who has the strength, right, for the weakness I have, right? And I think it is, and that's what we mean by flexible. How do we actually manage our resources? How can we be more open about it? It's just like, how we have stopped controlling people with hybrid or working from home. We are allowing people to be responsible, right? These are some things that we've been talking about for years, but we haven't done much about it.
Correct. So I agree with you, Malar, what you talked about it. I was just coming from a different perspective, because if you're coming from a development perspective, right, to turn the weakness into a competency or being competent takes a long time as well before the muscle is built. That's where I was coming from. So we're going on the same track, but just from different angles. All right. Moving on.
I also want to just add on from what you said. I think not fixing your weakness that matter, right, is not an excuse not to grow.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, when we do work around Flow Profiler, if you are underusing a skill or a muscle, right, that's relevant and appropriate to the job, then you need to do something about it. And if you don't do something about it and your manager doesn't do something about it, then that does not make sense. Okay, it does not really make sense.
Yeah. So I think the context is important. That don't use this as an excuse to say I'm not going to grow. Same thing like how we sometimes hide behind our personalities, right? I am this person, I'm an extrovert, I'm an introvert, so I prefer I don't prefer that. So I think we're differentiating strength, we're differentiating talent, we're differentiating preferences. So we need to know the parts that we actually can grow with competency, which is really different from the talent that Gallup is talking about. And Panir says, play to their strength. So as much as possible, we want to play to our strength. So if you're bringing so much of benefit with your strength, your weaknesses might not be worth fixing, because it's just not worth both the return on investment and the time that you invest, plus the demotivation that you're going to experience using your time for things that you don't enjoy, right? Because it takes you off your flow state. Because people who work on their strength are naturally in their flow states.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we talk about being brand ambassador. This is what typically we talk about, culture fit, right? Because it is so much more easier to train for competency than to try and train for culture. So, and this was a major point that Sharma brought in. Yes, you were going to say something.
No, nothing. Carry on.
Because once you belong, you have a sense of belonging to an organization, right? It's nice. So when we are bringing in people, we need to know actually what's the culture that we are setting. What's the culture of this particular team, this particular organization, and what do we look out for in our talent acquisition so that they will become our brand ambassadors? What do they have to believe in, right? And it's soft, right? In fact, today the what you call it, headhunters, right, from a very large organization shared. He said, when they're hiring, especially top positions, right, what is difficult is not the technical skill, it is the soft skill. In fact, he said this. He said, if we were hiring based on technical skill, we won't have a job, because that can be done by AI. I thought that was powerful. That was very, very
brilliant.
Powerful. He said, because the value proposition that we're offering our clients is the soft skill that's difficult to be measured. And as headhunters, that's the value we bring in to our clients, because when we get these candidates, the technical skills are a given.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he also said the technical skills are non-traditional technical skills. Right? So he said, look out for non-traditional technical skills, look for being agile, look for culture fit, and finally he spoke about soft skills and leading yourself. Because
sorry, carry on. Because
the managerial positions are becoming redundant, because we are expecting people to lead themselves,
accountable and lead to them.
Right.
And that's so important, and that's brilliant actually, because, and that's a point I think to those of you who are listening, if you're on the technical track, to rethink how you're thinking about your role and your skills and your development and your growth in that role. And if you're banking or hedging on technical skills, I think this is a wake-up call. That just technical skills, because there's only so much you can do before some machine learns what you know and then is better than that. So if you are on the technical, that doesn't mean that you jump off the technical track into the leadership track. But if you want to stay in the technical track, then there are other competencies and other areas that you need to grow on or in. Sorry. So that's brilliant. That's a brilliant reminder.
It is like, I remember when I was working with one large IT organization, right? One of those challenges, they always had a service manager. So they had the technical people who solved the problem at the back end for the clients. And then you had a service manager who was the bridge between the technical people and the client. Of communication, right? Because these people they just want to resolve. Now they were very proactive, because they realized that clients now are more sophisticated. They are able to understand some parts of what the technical people are doing and deal directly. Having said that, people needed to also upgrade themselves with communication skills to meet the clients halfway. Now, as a result, the service manager becomes redundant. So the service managers who are really good and who could retain themselves is they now actually knew how to communicate timely in the technical perspective. So it was really interesting to see how jobs were already changing 5 years ago and how
Yep.
companies were proactively thinking about it. Even if you look at customer service, right? We went from thank you for calling whichever organization, and stuff like that, to press one, press two, go to whichever department, to now self-help, right?
Yep.
And if you
Yep.
realize the bigger brands are beginning to personalize customer service all over again.
Yep. Agreed. And great minds think alike. I was going to say the same thing. In the work that we do in communication, when we are in a session with technical professionals, I know at the back of their heads a lot of times what they're looking at is like, why am I here to do communication? I'm very good at my technical skills. Why am I here doing a program and ability to speak impromptu? Why do I need to have to know how to present my ideas? But the thing is, there's only so much leverage that you can have with your technical skills. It's all the other skills, like you just explained and you gave that example, that's going to position you differently, that's going to position you such that you're a talent, internal talent that we want to build, or I want to acquire you. If I'm from external, I want to acquire you because you're the type that's going to fit my organization. Yep.
And I think organizations also need to begin to now think, how do I assess this so-called soft skills, leadership skills, which seem intangible, but this is a space that is really where your niche is beyond your technical skills, which is a lot more easier to measure, right? And that's been the truth. So if we look out there for future skills, right, beyond the technical skills, which are the new future skills that organizations are looking for. So if you look at the technical skills coming through, these are new skills. Plus a lot of complex soft skills.
Yep.
It's not direct, but it's complex soft skills, right? Now that's brand ambassador. Paul, Panir, thank you for the question. We'll come to it shortly if you're going to stay tuned with us, right? You've asked a challenging question. Then it's about knowing your employee value proposition. So this is interesting because I was working with a client last week and we were talking about the hiring process and chatting. And he said, nowadays when he interviews people, what your employees, potential employees, actually ask, tell me about your culture. In fact, we were having lunch with one of our clients, if you remember, and he said this. He said, when I'm interviewed, I want to know how my workspace look like, because I want to know what's the culture that I'm getting into. Right? And I'm very happy that employees feel empowered and they feel that it is okay for them to
ask these questions. Yeah.
And so for me, that's empowering because you're not looking at a job as to what do I do and how much I get paid, but you're looking at, hey, am I going to feel good in this space? And this is why employer branding becomes very important. There's one organization, they got, I went for the award ceremony and the HR manager just went up and she said, I just want you to know why you might think of joining us. She said, we give 6 months paternity leave. So if you're a young father, you know where to join. And I thought that was brilliant employer branding, right? She said, nice.
No. I'm saying she was doing a recruitment in a award ceremony.
It was so funny. I mean, people remembered her because it's not 6 months maternity; it's 6 months paternity.
Maternity,
right?
Yeah.
Actually, I can't remember how long is their maternity. Hopefully, it's 1 year, right? So knowing, and this is why organizations cannot not pay attention to their branding and how they are, how their brand is being talked about, right, within the organization, which then goes out, right? And knowing your pipeline well, and this is what Sharma was saying, right? It's really very, very interesting for me when I look at large organizations, right? I won't name any, but you have the leaders of led, the top leaders who have led the organization for 20 years.
Mm.
When they retire, they still
Who's on the
say
bench?
that you still find successes. You mean to say in 20 years we couldn't do succession
Yeah,
planning?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and these are large organizations, right? And I think it's really knowing your pipeline well, making sure your pipeline is continuously being filled with, what Sharma would say, how do we build talent internally, right?
Mm. And that's an interesting one. So I know a little bit of the backstory of Sandra Sinar Maslan, right?
Mm.
So in the context of Indonesia, Sinar Maslan is known as a FOB. FOB is family-owned business. All right. Now, an FOB's what is an FOB in not exactly the same, but if I were to match that in a language that we would be familiar in Singapore and in Malaysia, would be SME. Okay, but you take this SME and you multiply it. So that's Sinar Maslan. It's a huge, it's a huge engine. But and when you think about family-owned businesses, this is very important, right? Succession planning. Yeah, who's on your bench, right? And one of the things I know this. One of the things that organization wanted to do was to recharge, and they did it, was to recharge how they thought about succession planning and not relying on just the family, and switching it from a family-owned business thinking mindset to like what organizations, sustainable organizations are, and creating a leadership bench, not just from the family, but they extended it to outside the family, yet within the firm, within the organization, right? And that was not an easy move. Right? That was not an easy, and one of the reasons where Sandra played a role in creating that bench of talent that Sinar Maslan can tap on. Okay.
And it becomes important because we do know there's a war for talent out there. And I don't think because we lack talented people, but I think we don't grow enough talent, right? Which might, I'm not sure, which might actually bring to Panir's question, right? If I can put that up. So Panir says, soft skill is crucial. I interviewed for IT person, a first class grad didn't cut it. He could not speak. I hired a diploma holder because he could communicate better. And I'm going to be naughty, Panir. I hope you paid him the graduate salary.
It's my salary.
And we didn't save cost on it because he can deliver, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a fair salary, right? So fair compensation. Okay, we are nudging, we are poking Panir. For those of you who are not familiar with the term, stands for University Malaya. That's one of the key universities in Malaysia.
One of the top.
Yeah, I'm yeah. Is it still on top? Yeah. Okay.
Top, right. I mean, I think is sort of a thing. Still, on another note, how do you address talent abuse by line managers, insecure managers who suppress? So when you say abuse, I am assuming you're talking about insecure managers who suppress subordinates, which means that they don't let people grow or show up as well as they could, is what I am assuming, Panir. I don't know, Sham, do you want to address that first before I get excited?
Yeah, before you get excited, and also maybe put some context around it, and because so the short answer, Panir, is that is precisely what we'll be delving into next month. Our team is talent retention, and that's one of the elements of retaining your talent, right? Keeping them with you, and what is it that the managers or the leaders do in order to create that space. So that's my first bit, and I'm hoping that will shape the context of Malar's answer as well, because I think we've got a few things to cover, Malar, before we end the call in about 15 minutes. Yeah.
So far,
yeah.
Okay. So, very quickly, Panir, is that how do you address talent abuse? I really think it is, especially in organizations that's not too small, right? I think small or not too big, not too small. Yeah, small organization. I think the likeliness of abuse is lesser because I think in small organization people really get to shine, right, on one hand, because you need to do many things, right? And so there's no reason to suppress. I'm generalizing, of course. Now
I'm going to just jump in. And in smaller organizations, visibility is higher.
Yeah.
Right. It's a lot clearer when certain things are happening. You are able to spot and pick up all signals and signs. Right. Yeah. Sorry.
And in larger organizations, I know what you're talking about, where people are not allowed to shine. That means, bosses who, use their people but don't give them credit, or don't allow them to grow in the job, because I don't want you to leave my department. I want to, I'm dependent on you, right? So we tend to suppress. And you're saying insecure managers who suppress subordinates. For me, number one is, I think then it's a very close culture, and there's a lot of control for the managers. So this is something is not quite right with their system, because obviously it is my immediate manager who seem to have control over my career, and I don't think it should be that way. Things are becoming more open. It shouldn't be. Number one, that's really very quickly looking at systems, which is why organizations have a very open communication system, a transparent appraisal system, right, and feedback, right? So that's on one hand very quickly, Pani. But I think on the other hand also, right, some cultures, we might want to start thinking about, when we hire managers and leaders, do we care about their character strength and integrity? Because I'm not sure whether we hire for character strength at leadership level, or because right now what's happening is people get promoted because of technical skills and performance. And we're not saying that that's not important, but we're saying at a leadership level, do we now need to pay attention to their character, right? Like what Srijit said, right? The higher you go, integrity becomes the most important component, because your risk is greater, right? Whether we actually pay attention to that. And I know we need to move on, but I want to tell this story, right? One of the telecommunication companies, right, they were sharing this example. They were looking for a talent for, I think, number 2 position, if I remember correctly, right? And they finally zoomed into one person, right? This person had really qualified through. It's like the final interview, almost deciding. And if I remember correctly, it was a she. She didn't cut it finally. Now, why? Because at the reception, she did not treat the receptionist and the security with respect.
Well done.
For me, that was blowing, right? Because and they still couldn't fill the position, because they refused to fill the position, because they felt that if you can't treat our people well, people who are less powerful well, I don't think this is something you'd make a good leader, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll give you another example. This is a media company. That was a client of mine many years ago, and when I first started working with them, I remember how everyone in a session will go, they'll hush, they'll go down, they'll talk. If a particular person walked past the corridor, because they had glass windows and we could see who was walking on the outside, and after I build enough rapport, I asked them what's going on, right? And essentially the story is this. They hushed down because they did not want that person to walk into the room, because the chances are if that person walked into the room, they were going to get yelled at. Why were they going to get yelled at? Because the person's boss yelled at that person. Right? So there was a yelling culture. So Panir, that could also be another reason why there's suppression, because there's a certain kind of culture that's allowed to develop, it is nurtured in the organization, and it usually sometimes comes from the top, right? So people are just modeling what they see their leaders doing. So it's just perpetuated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Okay, so very quickly, I like this that people are coming to your comments. Jay and Gerald, hold on first. Candidate experience and life cycle. I think we understand that people first. It's very people centric now. So employees or potential employees are looking at how you treat your people, especially post
Yeah.
pandemic, right? They
Yeah.
see, one of those questions they ask is that how they are looking at how organization treated their people during the pandemic, and they are looking at their loyalty factors around it, right? And it is my most favorite, so I'm going to like talk a little bit about it, right? Your purpose, right? So one of I think in one of posts on the 6th of September, we're actually running a program, how to tie purpose with optimal performance. So if you're tuning in, you can join us. It's a face-to-face program. It is by invitation, so join us if you can invest the time, 9:30 to 12:30 at Unita. Now, why is this important? Because if you look at organizations, as leaders, we've got so many things to look at, right? Culture, retention, work from home, and the whole works, right? But if you think about something that's common to everybody's purpose, all right? And we actually put up a study on purpose where we found there's evidence, right? Data to be shared that when we are purpose driven. So if I know how I make a difference in my role and how my role makes a difference in the organization and a greater good, people, the performance is at an optimum level. So if because we're just starting off and organizations are looking at, I don't know where to focus on because there's so much of catch up to do, right? One way we can quickly bring everybody back and not worry about them being motivated is actually helping people to tie their job purpose back to the organization. So 6th of September, I think the link is below, so please sign up. And it's by invitation, right? So the purpose is important. Now, and then we're looking at social media as an advantage or a disadvantage, right? Because people are looking out, how we are showing up in social media. So are we doing enough, and are we showing up in the right way? Because, one mistake and, one negative comment out there for us, even if it is not true, no one is going to listen to the real story after that, right? Invest in education. We cannot say we can't do without growth anymore because things are changing so fast and things are becoming irrelevant so fast, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we are looking at. And what's the next one, Shah?
Okay. The values?
The slide is
About the values? All
we
right.
haven't finished that earlier slide.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I got it.
Sorry. Yeah, invest in education, validate talent acquisition strategy. We spoke a lot about strategy. Now, how do you validate it? How do you make sure you have a process that works? Finally, if it's not final, is I think it's one of the core things is be authentic, be real about it. As a person, as an organization. Now, as you go to the next slide, I just want to address what my good friend Jay is saying. Oh, it's so nice to see her commenting. Jay says we need to create equitable hiring practices to deter biasness. Yes, current screening tools has a tendency of excluding qualified candidates just because they don't tick the box. I agree, especially in an already sparse talent pool, right? Now, we need to create, what is equity? And I think, how do we make sure everybody gets an equal opportunity so that we don't miss out on talent? So Jay, I'm there with you. Panir says, thank you so much for all these wonderful comments you're giving. I hope you come in every week. My son works for a Big Four consulting. Each staff is allocated an in-house coach, mentor, fantastic, who helps with career progression. Now, this is fantastic because, the matching, right? I feel that helps talent development and retention. I don't think it's just a feeling. I think it's so much needed and validated approach.
Yeah, I think it's a cost strategy that many firms do, especially among the big fours, right? It's their way of retaining talent within the organization, and also funneling the talent up to that structure, because they've got a pyramid at the end of the day, right? They work on a pyramid system. Okay, sorry. Gerald.
Yeah, nice one. Before Gerald, because Gerald's one is a bit more complex. Panir says alignment of self-purpose, yes, and corporate goals makes a huge difference in performance. Yeah, we'll show you that. I'll let you address Gerald's question because this is like a tough one for me. Singapore as a country has done well. So you're a Singaporean. In attracting best talent around the world. Also Indonesia, Germany, Estonia, and many more. So I'm not sure about all of that, but Indonesia, I would agree. Yeah? What do you believe are key factors to achieving this?
Okay. I think first and foremost, it's fair, equitable, and fair salaries. That's one. Number two, I think a huge part. So this I'm speaking for Singapore, Gerald. So number two, and I think it's the big part of it is the system. The system that's created to hire talent anywhere from around the world. It's a simple system, it's a neat system, it's a transparent system. So there's no middleman usually involved in it. It's a very direct system, and you know what you're getting into. And it's a system that Singapore has built, not just in terms of how it's built its economy, as in how it has attracted foreign trade. It's also the same system it uses in terms of building its foreign talent base as well, right? It's easy. And of course, it helps when you have a tax system that's also very, very gentle on the pocket. Yeah. So Singapore is what we call, what we say, Asia 101. It's an easy place to adapt. It's an easy place to fit. And at the same time, you shine if you know what you, if you're good at what you do. Yeah, that's my take on it, Gerald. And thank you for asking that question.
Nice one. Okay, I won't speak for Malaysia since he didn't mention Malaysia.
No, he didn't.
Ouch, but that's fine. But I also think, right, so for me, I specifically, having worked a little bit in Indonesia, I think there's just something about the Indonesian culture in terms of how well equipped they are with knowledge, right? And how they stay very, very people-centric, backed with data and the latest research. So when I work with leaders in Singapore, Sharmini, we work, right? That's been my big aha factor with Indonesia in terms of the type of leaders that we have been working with. Very level-headed, very humble, and people are really the center of their business, right? Beyond all of that, right? And I think I think to say we are people-centric and to act is two different things. And I think with the clients that we work, the people-centricity among the top leaders, for me, I find that very, very inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to add on to that, the difference I see between Singapore and Indonesia, in terms of the talents, in terms of the culture, as in races that it comes in, is very interesting. In Indonesia, you get a mix of both Asian as well as the Westerners, right? I think there's a lot more mix of Asians fitting into taking roles in Indonesian organizations. Yep. So let's go on. Oh, we have got
Last one. Okay, so I hope we've given you enough statistics to say why talent acquisition we need to relook at it, because it's really people are the heart of our business, right? And because we've been talking about purpose, and because we've been talking about commitment, we've been talking about soft skill. Just want to share with you one last slide, which is on values, right? This is one of my favorite. I think next slide, right, Shah?
Okay, you're
Next
talking
slide.
about, okay, you let me know. Okay, this
Next
one?
one, next one, sorry, next one. Okay, this
This
one.
one,
We'll
yeah,
end with
this one.
this, right? Causes and poster, right? Because when organization, do a lot of cultural programs or value fit program, my clients, or most of them, often want me to include corporate values into the work that we do. Everything that we do has to be aligned with the corporate values, right? And now, one of those things, and we often, at least in this part of the world, we tend to think being professional, personal development is separate from professional development.
Mm,
It's more
mm,
important for people to know what the corporate values are. What does it mean to be a professional, than to really know who you really are, right? And because Pandey did speak about insecure managers, right? So what this study shows is this. So if you look under leadership challenge, what they found in a study is this, right? When people are clear about their personal values. So if you look at 6.12, right? People are clear. That means they know what it means to them, right? And when they're clear about their values, highest commitment level is measured at 7. Their
mm,
commitment is 6.12. And
mm,
then when they become clear about the organizational values, their commitment is 6.26.
mm. Okay.
Now, when people are low, that means they don't quite really understand their values. We all have values, whether we are clear about it or not, whether we live it purposefully or not is a different issue, right? Now, the impact on commitment is 4.9, low. It doesn't really matter. And then when you send me for corporate values, my commitment actually goes down to 4.87. Goes down to 4.87. Now, I find this fascinating, because whenever our clients are talking to us and say, no, we don't want to focus on people at a personal development level, right? It is
Mm,
because we don't focus on the personal development level. That's why we are having leaders who are messing up the place, right?
mm,
Because
mm,
I'm insecure. I don't create a safe space in the organization. I say something, I do something else, right? And life becomes really, really difficult. And we know that people join organizations and leave managers, right? So when you are a high potential, when you're a great talent, and you get caught in a system where you're not working for a reasonably good person, all right? I'm not even talking about leadership skills here. I'm talking about not working for a good person, right? As to who they are in terms of their values and how they treat you at work. Then you are going to lose. One is, for me, I'm going to lose opportunity. But for the organization, we're going to lose potential talent and real talent. So
mm.
I'm going to just wrap with that, Sham, and let you say what you want to say.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Clever. Clever. Hey, I wanted to ask you a question actually.
Mm.
How would you distinguish between professional development and personal development?
Okay, so professional development, the way we see it here, at least this part of the world, right? We talk about soft skill and hard skill, right? So, for
Yes.
example, if you go for presentation skill, it's considered professional development because you need to do that in your job,
Mm, mm,
correct? If you think
mm,
about, say, my favorite topic, emotional intelligence or stress management,
mm,
time management is seen as professional development. You need to manage your time.
mm,
But whether it's financial intelligence, for example, how do I manage my money? How do I manage and work around my emotions? How do I understand myself, which is mental health topics, right? Has a lot to do with me growing up as a person,
mm.
right?
Okay.
So a lot of these things are the ones that's parked under soft skills, right? So
Yep.
we will do leadership skills. For example, if you look at even in if you look at leadership skills, what are considered leadership skills? It is the how to,
Yep.
but
How
we don't
to, we don't talk about why, right? We don't
yeah,
talk about the whys. Yep.
the why and the who. who are you, how are you showing up as a leader, is not something that we think we need to help people develop. We assume they should already have it as long as they're in the position. So this is like, just like how we go up the corporate ladder and build on our technical skills. As you build on technical skills, as you go higher up the hierarchy, right, your so-called personal development as a person, you also are dealing with complex situation, complex decision making, which means that you need to have a lot more skills, a lot more understanding about people, right? And so for me to make the right choices and decision for people, I need to really understand myself and what I stand for to be a good leader, right? Because people are looking at me for the light, right? So, and I don't think we do that, just like authenticity, right? We want authentic leaders, but do we invest to help people find their authenticity? Or do we create an environment that is safe for people to feel safe to be the best versions of themselves, not the perfect version of themselves?
Yeah. I just got, on that note, I just got this morning, just before we went on live, right? Not this morning, this evening, just before we went live, I had a provider reach out to me, and it's a reputable one. If I'm not going to tell who they are, and say, do you do this on leadership, Sham? Managing stakeholder engagement. I'm like, yeah. And then there was this brief, and I said, it sounds like a webinar. And yeah, it's part of a bigger leadership program. I'm like, when are we going to move away from these areas and talk about the important things, and talk about the important things that if we get right, if most other things generally would fall in place, that. And on that note, we're not going to
I
take
want
more
to add one more thing, please.
We are 6 minutes over.
People will forgive me. Okay, one last one. So if you think about, again, personal and professional development, look at how much, when organizations come to us, how they are how we are trying to minimize the importance of certain skills like feedback, for example, right? We get requests, can you do feedback in 1 hour? Yes, we can. And what I tell my client is, why don't you just give them the slide? Because that's what you can do in 1 hour. So you look at the topics and the time that is allowed for them to internalize it, because it's not head knowledge. So I promise you, I'm done. So we want to thank everyone who's joined us. You can see what excites me, and if you're still with us and what we have said to you today makes some sense, resonates in your heart, check your calendars. 6th of September, 9:30 to 12:30. Sham and I will be facilitating a session, all right, where we're looking at how purpose helps us to get to our optimal performance. Attendance is by invitation, so it'd be wonderful if you just, click our events page and register, because it's on first come, first serve basis, because we're going to help you see what's the connection, what's the data around what are great organizations doing. So with that, this is Malar signing off from Malaysia.
And I'm just adding on to say that if you want to revisit any part of what we have talked about today, you can do that on our YouTube channels, Hearts and Minds, or Be in Clarity. Or if you're the type who likes to hear it, we have podcasts too. So find us on Spotify and you'll be able to hear us again. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a very, very good evening. We love the questions and the comments, and thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week with a brand new month and a brand new theme on talent retention. Yes,
and we are still at 6 p.m., even though we like 8 a.m. So see you at 6 p.m. next Thursday with another interesting guest. Bye.